we go. Block Party's out. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying, hit that subscribe button on our Process to Perform channel. Hit me up, Mike Wahle68 on X, Twitter thing. Process to Perform on Instagram. Our show, as always, is hosted by, or excuse me, it's sponsored by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your summer sports this season for Major League Baseball, golf, the National Basketball Association, and the National Hockey League playoff stats. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on all the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. And I just got done watching a Champions League game. It's soccer for those who aren't interested. One of the sports gone soft. Refs absolutely threw the game. One team's up 1-0, dominating the game. They then proceed to get 3 reds, 4 or 5 yellows, and basically get dog walked off the field by Paris Saint-Germain. I don't know about the gambling situation or throwing games or this, that, or favoritism. Who knows about international FIFA? I know they've always been at the utmost integrity. But that was insane game. But this is a football podcast. And I have to say, this is about the time of the year that, dude, I just want to can we get the season done? Can we just get started already? I really, really enjoy watching tape on young players. And I really, really enjoy watching how they can immediately go in and infect the National Football League. I like watching what the potential is for them to develop, what's some flaws in their game, what that says about the college or the coach they're developing under, what that says about them. Like, you can get so much information just even from watching like the technical aptitude of a player. You can gather so much information about their professionalism, their resiliency, like their attention to detail. There's so much I can learn from a guy just by watching him on tape. Said that, and this isn't this. There's a reason that I'm not mainstream. I can't. Like, I had to get off Twitter for like 5 or 6 days, or X, whatever it's called, because all of these experts with their mock drafts and what if this happens and this guy falls, and then they put up like a screenshot of a guy on like one move doing it, some other guy, and going, "Oh, he's our surefire pick," and I don't know how to get excited about that, because I think it's more exciting once you find out who you have on your team. Like, how are they going to fit in? And like that part of the puzzle is interesting. But I also, I guess I'm not general manager material. I don't know. It's crazy. I don't get it. I do like watching these guys. I really have a good time watching these guys. And that said, there's a group of people that I love to hate, obviously, the defensive line. I think there's a couple guys in this draft that are going to be interested on that side of the ball at the defensive line position. We could be talking about D tackle or defensive end. I think for a couple of reasons. There's always a couple guys that leapfrog over, like, maybe where they entered either the college football season or where they entered like draft season day one and where they are now. They vaulted for some reason. Maybe their stats just got blown up a different way. Maybe they look a little bit different. Maybe they did something at the Senior Bowl and one of those experts decided that was a big deal. You always have to kind of default back to the tape. Obviously, the combine in truth is the physical is the most important part of the combine. The medical stuff. The interview is the second most important part of the combine. But topping all of that is really the intermingling between coaches, getting new jobs, kind of hiring new people, all that kind of stuff is really what the combines turn into. The pro days are important, obviously, as well. They always try to make it a big deal. Like, did you compete at the combine? Is that a big deal? I think there's some old school guys that maybe still left in the league that value the fact that you went over there and showed out. Certainly, if you're a player that's not ranked as highly, then going over there and proving yourself, there's nothing negative that's going to come of that. So I'm not against it, certainly, but I think you have to turn on the tape, and what the tape shows you in live situations where you get into that parasympathetic or sympathetic state, and we see how you react. We see how you think. We see how you default to as far as your technical ability. We see all that information. Then we can start making some really good kind of forecasts about what we might get when we bring you in, and then what that's going to look like from a development standpoint. Because there's so much that the team has to think about as far as, what if you've got like teams do this, and the UConn, Gino, what's Arietta? Gino Arietta? The women's UConn basketball coach was just talking about, listen, and he was talking about the NBA and the WNBA. There are terrible coaches in the professional ranks, and there are really good coaches in high school. You've heard it here. You've heard me say it a ton. And in the National Football League, there are position coaches that are not good developers of talent. And honestly, as a general manager or as a head coach, whoever's making the decisions, you have to look at some of these guys, and we're going to point them out, some of this defensive line in particular, where you go, okay, he might athletically tick a couple boxes that you like, but if you get the wrong guy in front of him, he's never going to be what you want him to be. If you put him in the wrong situation, if it's the wrong city or the wrong organization, it's got the wrong leadership, he's got the owner on speed dial. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong. And so, like, for me, the more interesting part is, let's look at this guy, and then let's look internally at what we have from a development standpoint. We can always go back to the Packers, and you look at like Stenovich when James Campen, Adam Stenovich, when they were in the offensive line room, and like how the line was really flourishing and really a point of strength. And are we kind of getting there as Buck is going to hit his stride here in his now multiple years with the team, and how that room's going to look again. You look at the defensive backs room and all the first round picks they have, and kind of the varying levels, and like, whose fault is that really? Is that the coordinator, or, all these different questions that come into play, right? The tight ends room, and how well the wide receivers coach and how well they've done, and how much of that is head coach Matt LaFleur being involved in that room versus, that wide receiver room. But regardless, like, you could draft a wide receiver 1st round, 7th round, unrestricted free agent or undrafted free agent, and feel really good about that room being able to develop talent. Like, I think of all the rooms in Green Bay, you probably feel the best about that. I'm getting off my point, because I really want to talk about these defensive linemen. So I went ahead and I looked at 3 guys that, listen, they may or may not be for the Packers. And let's see if they can help the guys if they were there. But I think they're interesting for a couple different reasons. And I started with the kid out of UCLA, Latu, and the reason is, okay, 6'5", 259 pounds. So right off, edge player, and you start going, okay, UCLA, Pac-12 guy, they had a strong conference this year, physically ticks all the boxes. So 13 sacks, that's a big number. Okay, 49 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Those are great numbers, okay? And then I dug a little deeper just because it's interesting. That doesn't look right. It says has tools, needs skills. And there's 6 sacks against Colorado. We know offensive line was terrible. Shedeur Sanders holds the ball for a long time. And then this is like Coastal Carolina University. So he had 3 and 3 there. So you take that out, still has a good season, doesn't have a great season. There's a lot of stuff on tape that you're really excited about. But, like, why does he vault up? And I think part of it is you go to, like, the Senior Bowl, you get into a 3-point stance, you look a little bit different. You have some success on one-on-ones. You get excited about that. And just physically, he's got a lot of tools. Obviously, I'm a big fan of this guy. I'm rooting for him just because Deshaun Foster just took over UCLA, so I'm now a UCLA fan because Deshaun Foster's my ex-teammate, and he's a really, really badass dude, and I can't wait for him to do well. I have my best friend was at UNLV when I was out training in Las Vegas in the offseason when I was playing for Green Bay. Mike Flanagan and I were both training in Vegas. And I met my best friend there. His name is Ryan Clarence. I call him Coach. And Coach was playing outside linebacker. I think at the time he might be playing inside out and outside. But we took Coach, and we worked with him every day. And Mike and we taught him how to pass rush. And he went from, I forgot how many sacks he had the year before, but he went from his next year, he had, I want to say 12 and a half sacks or 13 sacks. And all of a sudden was like a very, very viable draft pick. So my point is, if you get the right people around you to develop whatever skill set you have, you can do really well. Some of these guys, and I will show this guy, he's got the tools and he got some numbers, but if you want to have a lot of success, there's some work that needs to be done. Side note on Coach, if you're asking, I wonder what happened to Coach. Coach got drafted in the 5th round by the New England Patriots. Of course, they moved him to like inside linebacker, blew out his shoulder 3 times. He ended up, I think, getting 2 or 3 years out of it. But it was weird because he was just like literally killing people in the sack game, and in college. And then I don't know if he even got a chance to do that. Let's check out this kid though. So he's real smooth. I think the thing that pops off the screen with him is he's got a bunch of different rushes. Like he's watched tape on guys and is trying to mimic a lot of rush moves, okay? Or he's clearly have somebody he works with. Now, you can just see the way he moves. So the first thing is, how do you move? So there's nothing there he doesn't get a sack, but you just see you got the jump chop. He's real smooth with it. Here's the thing that stands off, and I think maybe I saw a couple of clips of him maybe at the Senior Bowl, somebody was in a 3-point. And we talk about this with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith all the time. And we talk about going to a 4-3. It doesn't mean you have to put your hand down, but there's an opportunity to do it. This guy does not threaten the tackle at all this week. I think he had a sack and a half or 2 sacks in this game. But he doesn't threaten anybody with his like pre-contact. In other words, he's not challenging or disrupting the rhythm of the person involved in the pass set. Like his opponent is never off rhythm when he makes plays. So he does a really good job of just moving around. But when we start just looking at, you see him here just taking on with the same foot, same shoulder on the pulling guard, does a good job here. Not a great job, just a good job. Just does his job, I suppose, just kind of looking at him from a bend standpoint. I showed this one more time. But when you look at players like that, you just see how they move. Athleticism is crazy, crazy good. 6'5", 260 pounds. But you see here, he's not disrupting rhythm at all. Now, he's thinking he's got a 2-way go, but he hasn't made that. That tackle's in the exact position he wanted to be. He doesn't have to open up. He can stay square to the line of scrimmage. Like, he's done nothing to disrupt his rhythm. And so he has what looks like a really good inside move here, but he ends up, just getting washed down. And the reason is that stance coming out of your stance, like the first step, all of that stuff, it's not challenging anybody. That's something you really got to improve on. And also with that, you see a lot of chest. Like there's a lot of opportunity to hit chest. There's a lot of opportunity to gain leverage. And we'll see that a little bit later on some of the run stuff as well. So he's on the outside here. I'll show this from the end zone. The guard pulls just like a G lead play right here. And he does a good job, you see, with hands here, but he doesn't press and extend really. You want to just stone that and not get washed out. He does a good job because this is an outside play, and he does a good job walling it off. Again, really, really good athlete. I think some natural instincts, probably some really good coaching at UCLA. You just want to see a little more violence at the point of contact. We see here against 77, who's going to potentially be in the draft. You just see the quick move. Again, that is, we talked about this before. The Arizona tackle, I think his name is Morgan, is not like a great pass setter per se. He's a good athlete. I think he's runs a 5 flat or a 5.04. He's somewhere around 312 pounds, 6'5". So he's actually like a Packers kind of guy, right? But when you watch him set, he turns a lot. So the inside spin's going to be there if you want to take it. Now this is shine time. This is what he can do really well. He gets around the tight end and he's just so silky. And then bends the corner. You see the incredible bend. Looks like Von Miller, really, as far as the ability to get like low and disruptive. See if I have another look from it here. And you just see the chop, club, rip through, right? And again, he's really high, so you can see a lot where an offensive lineman in the NFL is going to be able to punch through this. But just from marrying your feet up with your hands and like the possibilities there, certainly, this is one of those guys where it's like two different kind of guys, right? We talked about Lucas Van Ness last year. Lucas Van Ness had like 4 hustle sacks last year, right? Like he doesn't earn a sack as far as like he doesn't beat a guy clean like this, really. Like that's not the name of his game necessarily. But you have to ask yourself, what do you feel is more effective? Is it a guy like this who's got all the kind of silky movement, but is he going to ever maximize that? Or do you want a guy like Lucas Van Ness who's probably a little bit underwhelming from a technical standpoint, or maybe he's like, yeah, I'm not saying he's not a good athlete. He's a great athlete, but from a like fluidity of movement, it doesn't look quite like this guy, but he's probably going to get you a couple effort sacks every season, right? And I'm not saying this guy didn't. It's always an interesting when you think about what kind of players you want in your room. We look in here just with the quick shake inside, rips underneath the guard. And this is the kind of athleticism you can't teach. Natural instinct. Again, you can't always look at the ball. You got to look at what's going on. There's a lot of RPOs in the college game, obviously. He gets blocked out by the tight end here and gets held outside and doesn't collapse that for a touchdown. And this is the kind of stuff. Down to the 2-yard line. But this is the kind of stuff that's just not okay. Now, I saw this play, and he's lined up against the tackle, to be fair, okay? Not the guard. But you start having these, like, Justin Tuck nightmares. And what I'm referencing there is, you remember Justin Tuck went into the Super Bowl for the Giants versus the Patriots. And it was like the first time anybody had thought, oh, maybe we should take one of these really athletic, like 6'5", 275-pound defensive ends and put them over guys like me who have no athleticism whatsoever and see what they can do. And he took Logan Mankins to the woodshed. And Logan Mankins, all pro, he might be a Hall of Fame caliber guard, but you're not used to blocking that kind of speed, especially in the Super Bowl, seeing it for the first time. And so that's like a way. A lot of people talk about that with Van Ness. Now, again, I'd say the same thing with this guy. Probably too small to do it at the pro level, but you just see what happens when he puts his hand down. The leverage it gets him and his speed and fluidity of movement. He is able to inside move on this tackle with the quickness, and end up making this play for a tackle for loss. My opinion is, when you put a guy like this, when you put his hand in the ground, you magnify his effectiveness. And they might not want to get in the ground, and they might say, oh, I can't see the crack block. I can't see things. Dude, get your hand in the ground, because you play lower, you get off the ball faster, you're much more effective. The options you have as a pass runner or a run defender are so much higher. It seems subtle, but the little footwork and the nuance to go in with that are really hard for offensive linemen. Not a sexy play, but it's a great play. It's a great play. And we see over here, and this is the kind of stuff, just, again, standing up, not great hands, not great pad level, and just gets washed, 4 yards driven by the Arizona left tackle here. You see it one more time. And this is where, for me, I don't want to keep a guy playing in a stand-up when he's going to be that easy to block. You see one more here. He's got the spin again. Just to show it, just a really, really fluid player. So before we get to Byron Murphy, you see that guy, and it's interesting because you start hearing about him, of course, during draft time. And I think he probably made some all Pac-12 team or something, but, consensus, I don't know if he's a consensus All-American or anything. You start hearing about him, you say, 13 sacks, it's a big number. And you go, there were 6 sacks, Coastal Carolina and Colorado. Not that we want to dismiss that completely, but you also have to, put everything in context. If you had, like, let's say, for example, you had 7 sacks in one game and you had 13 sacks for the year. Well, that is a lot different than whether you're getting a sack a game or a sack and a half a game, like that consistency, and you're always beating people. When I turn the tape with this guy, what you see is I see a guy that I think will really behoove him to put his hand in the ground. I think he can probably put on a couple pounds, but at that size, 6'5", 260, runs a runs like a 4.8, something like that. He's got every bit of athleticism, bend, everything that he needs to be a really, really high level player. He's not going to be available for the Packers at 25, and I just don't know. You kind of look at it; you're not going to get another defensive player on the defensive line. You picked up Wyatt 2 years ago. You picked up Lucas Van Ness last year, and I think, quite frankly, for me, he's better than both those players. But he's probably not going to be available. Even if you try to get up into the teens, he might be gone. I think there's a lot of buzz around him, and we all know what happens in the management room when there's a lot of media buzz around a player. The owner hears that, he gets in the ear of so-and-so, or the president hears that. Now, luckily, the Packers are usually insulated from that, but they're the only team that's insulated from that. So unless they're trying to, get kind of draft out of position for a guy like that in a need, they might not necessarily feel as critical as safety, linebacker, offensive line, etc. So Let's get back to Byron Murphy because I'm excited about this guy as well. So here's the thing about Byron Murphy. Out of Texas. Texas actually has 2 guys in this draft. The other guy jumped off the screen for me, and let me get his name so I don't screw this up. Tavondre Sweat. So I'm watching the tape, and I'm thinking like, oh, it's this guy, right? And then I realized, oh no, it's number 90. It's 6 foot 297. Okay, he's got a ton of buzz around him, and there's a couple guys he reminds me of. So let me give you his stats: 29 tackles, 5 sacks, and it's all simple sack stuff. Like he's just a great leverage player. Okay. My 2 cents: leverage athlete, being 6 foot tall, but uses it in certain situations. Certain situations he plays tall. Explosive off the ball. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but really the big thing is he's not trying to be anything he's not. He's really good at the basics. He plays the nose tackle at 6 foot. Can you play the nose tackle? He reminds me, I don't know if everybody's going to remember this name. He reminds me of a guy named Cedric Darby who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I forgot what draft he was in, but he was a relatively high draft pick. And he ended up playing there for a couple years, and he went to Seattle, played for the Seahawks, and he was their starting like 3 technique. And I'm just telling you, this guy I tell you personally, he gave me fits everywhere he was, because when you're 6 foot, right around 300 pounds, and you can move, you can get under armpits and really start doing that rip up field and turn. We're going to see it on tape with this guy a little bit. And again, I don't look for highlights. I look for plays. I try to take plays in context and understand whether or not this player is going to be effective at the next level. So, leverage is the new short, as we talk. Like when guys were 6'5", 340, you got a 6 foot player, they just say he was short. Then you saw like James Harrison, obviously Aaron Donald. It's like, oh no, they play with great leverage. So we use leverage as the new short now. But here we go. So you see he takes on the double, which allows the linebacker to come through and try to make the play. Doesn't get blown off the ball. Right? Has the guard in the center fighting against him because he knows how to attack a single man on a double team block. Ends up falling down, but kind of getting his hand on the play. Now, this shouldn't work. This offensive lineman for Alabama had a bad day against this kid. And you can see here, he's got the Alabama guard has left hand, should punch and extend, shouldn't be able to grab the back of that jersey, should be able to extend the arm. But this is the thing with a leveraged 6 foot, 300 pound player that's got a little wiggle to him. He can get here and then rip left arm and get to the quarterback. And so again, he gets a quarterback pressure. Worst off for the lineman, lineman's flat on his face, and he goes, you immediately have to bank that. If it was early in the game, like, oh man, I got a real problem here because he just defeated what should have been an easy win for me. Now, here's the thing. Against double teams, you see his body height immediately, even though sometimes he gets in a 4-point stance, he almost stands up and gives you that chest, okay? And he's not really doing a great job of attacking with hands, helmet, right, with a better shoulder pad, hip hinge level. He's almost like he's taking advantage of his height, but he's not using his height to his advantage. He gets blown off the ball here pretty well by, obviously a very, very good team with the Alabama squad. But you want to see guys lean into like their superpowers. And for a 6 foot defensive tackle, nose tackle, your superpower is that you're 6 foot tall. You're either because you either can't play because of it or it's your superpower. Like Aaron Donald and Cedric Darby decided it was their superpower and they were really good because of it. Some guys will be like, oh, I'm not big enough to play in the National Football League because of it. But this guy's got to lean into it a little bit more and use that leverage. Now, you got to fight pressure. So I show this. I'll back it up one more time. That was too much. I'll do it again. So they got like an ace block between the center and the left guard. And the left guard is going to try to stay square. You see his hands are outside, first off. That's kind of the one thing that immediately always stands out is, do you get your hands on the center's chest? Because the center's got one hand snapping the ball. So at least you got to think that left hand should be beating his right, and it's not, okay? The second thing is here, the center is able to turn, and now when the center's shoulder pads are facing backside towards the opposite sideline, you got to be able to play over the top here, fight the pressure, and get into the hole. You can't let a guy wheel you. In the National Football League, with guys who have better hands, better hand placement, and can stay square to the line of scrimmage, you're going to have a real hard time if you can't fight this pressure and get over the top. You see 95 doing actually a better job of it on the backside there. Now, I love this. This is exactly what you're looking for when you're looking to draft a guy like Mike Murphy. So we got the double, and he drops to a knee, but he absolutely destroys any double team between the center and the left guard. They're both standing there doing nothing. Center can't get off. That leaves the linebacker free, which is really the point of you attacking that double team properly. He actually eats up both guys. He attacks the guard. So even though he hits a knee, he pops back up because of that leverage and athleticism, pops back up and ends up getting in on this play. That's a fantastic play. And if you're looking to bring in a guy, you want to bring in a guy that shows that on tape consistently, right? It's not just about the splash. Like everybody sees the Aaron Donalds and the J.J. Watts and they go, oh, we want to see all this great stuff. There's only like generationally a handful of guys that can play like that. So guys that can destroy double teams, keep your linebackers clean, and then give you a little bit in pass rush, very, very valuable players. We see here, I think he's on. Let me go back here. So just tries to work a rip off the right tackle, but you see a lot of times it's always hard because like the Texas team in this game are running a lot of TT stunts and whatnot. So you don't know sometimes, is he like holding up and reading? Is he trying to spy the quarterback? Is he just deciding to rush late? Like why are you running into the guy? Why are you not attacking the guy's angle, trying to get him to turn, trying to get him to do something? You've already shown that this player is going to have a hard time against you, especially that right guard who's standing up half the game. So we see here, now he takes the center, I believe, simple leverage rush, gets that rip, gets through, and this is what a 6 foot, 300-pound quick player can do to guys in the National Football League. Like this works, like this travels very, very well. He can do this right away and just get pressure. He actually got held there, but gets pressure on the quarterback, gets the ball away. So he's responsible for moving that guy off. Might not go down as a single statistic in the game, but when you're watching stuff and like how the game actually works, that is very, very important. It's mission critical for a lot of defenses. So he beats the guy so badly here that he's on his ass. We're talking about the center now. He's got, face mask in the grass. Guard's got to come over and clean it up, which he does. But you look, the center's on his ass, right? So one-on-one, he's got some quicks to him. You feel pretty good about how he's doing against the center in particular. We showed a couple on the right guard as well. So anytime you got to get the cleanup, again, doesn't register as anything, but that's a hell of a good play. Now, at 6 foot, 297 pounds, 6 foot, whatever he is, 300 pounds, can you threaten the bull? Now, I'm not cherry picking plays. I just watch plays and I'm asking the questions, right? Because we did just see him beat the center, but now he has to go actually bull, and this center does a pretty good job of just dropping anchor. Now, granted, he is 7-8 yards deep, okay? So he can create a little bit of pressure there with his leverage, with his power. I think he's a very strong, to me, it looks like a very strong player. I don't know what his numbers are, but he looks like a very low body, powerful, explosive player. So I think at that weight, he's still going to be able to move some guys. My problem is when he gets to the Frank Ragnows of the world, like the 320-pound centers, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I do like him a lot. I do like his game. I don't think he's a first round guy, but like at 41, you go like, oh, he's not going to start on this team. And I think when you talk about like a first round draft, like he needs to be starting on this team. I don't know that he starts on this team, but I certainly like him. And you start looking at some guys over the last couple of years that you draft, and I think everybody might say that Devontae Wyatt's got a higher upside because of just size. But I could flip that argument and say, with the right guys around Byron Murphy, because he's clearly explosive lower body. He's I mean, powerful. He's clearly understands like his leverage rushes, and you're going to get singled up enough where if you just learn how to attack armpits of guards and use that leverage to get underneath them and just try to get that edge, you're going to cause a lot of havoc, and you're going to make the quarterback flush the pocket, or you're going to actually get up and get hits and sacks enough times where you come out of the season, you got 5, 6, 7 sacks, couple pressures. You did good in the run game, and you're a very, very valuable piece of the puzzle, right? As opposed to a guy, again, who's got a ton of potential and this and that and the other thing. So I guess the theme's kind of when we look at these guys again, you're trying to project. And what I see is a guy that from an NFL standpoint, from a pass rush standpoint, and to a certain extent, some of the run stuff, got a lot of work to do, will get blown off the ball if he doesn't play with lower leverage, lower pad level. But having said that, it's there. He shows it on tape. Just got to be more consistent. But he does have some NFL-ready pass rush stuff, which is super important. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I put this last guy on very simply before I knew anything about him, because two of my favorite teammates were the Jenkins brothers. So I had, obviously, Cullen was in Green Bay for years, and Cullen was always like, Cullen was initially, and Cullen, if you're listening to this, I don't remember, so maybe I'm not remembering this correctly, but I think he started off as like a camp guy and earned a spot. He was out of like Western Michigan or Eastern Michigan. And then his brother Chris got drafted to Carolina. And I remember the first year I played Chris, and I was like, holy shit. Like, Chris is going to be a problem. And I think I played him 3 years in a row. And the third year was on Monday Night Football. It was my last year in Green Bay. And they had Mike Rucker, Chris, Brenton Buckner, Julius Peppers, Dan Morgan, Will Witherspoon, Chris Gamble was out on one side. Mike Minter was one of the safe. I mean, they were guys, they were as stacked as you could find in the National Football League. Best box seven in the National Football League, best D-line hands. It was like joke how good they were. And it was because of this guy's dad. And I ended up going there in large part, to be honest with you, because I had never played with a defense that good and that confident, and I just had those kind of dudes on it. And I was like, man, I'm out here like fighting wars against these guys. I would love to be able to play with these guys. And first year, before the quarterback got hurt, first year we go to the NFC Championship, and this guy had a lot. His dad Chris had a lot of things to do with it. He was an All-Pro caliber player. He was a guy that had a hard time keeping his weight down, but it's one of those coulda, woulda, shoulda. If he could have kept his weight down, you're looking at a guy who's probably wearing a gold jacket. He had that kind of talent. So Chris, his son Chris, actually reminds you more of Cullen. Was a lot smaller, but had a lot of wiggle to him. Because Chris Jenkins is at Michigan at 6'3", 299 pounds, 300 pounds. National championship. Here's the word I'm just going to use for this guy. He is a complete value add to whatever team he comes into. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the draft picks. I look at guys like, okay, this is a day one guy or day two. I don't understand where this guy lands, but I'm just telling you, this guy can play football. Okay, so we talked about it. Former Packer Cullen Jenkins, his uncle. Big Chris is an All-Pro. And number 94 on the screen, guys. Michigan they're purpose built. They're doing things a very specific way to run the defense they want to run. And so you have to look at how well he's doing what he's being asked to do instead of how does that help me at 3 technique, or how does that help me as a traditional 3-4 player? How does that work? Because otherwise it's not going to give you what you want. So he's purpose built for this. He does a great job at displacing multiple humans all the time. So you see it here, and this is against Fasciano and one of the premier left tackles in this draft, and the left guard, and they fold the linebacker over and they create this double. And you'll notice the entire game, these guys can't get up to the second level because he does such a good job. And quite frankly, he plays on the Penn State's side of this line of scrimmage more often than not. And so when you watch tape on guys like this, don't watch the ball because this is an RPO. Look at the line of scrimmage. Look where everybody else is. Now, again, he's against their best guy in the left tackle. And then the left guard, he's getting double teamed damn near every play. And he's the one playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. Why? Because he's in a great stance. He's got an incredible first step, and he plays hat and hands as well as anybody. His leverage, his hand placement, his technique is really, really high level. Really, really high level. So again, don't watch the ball because it ends up being a little bubble screen. But he's making the play in the run part of the RPO on their side of the line of scrimmage. We look here. Now, they're trying to run a double with a fold block underneath, okay? Look what he does to this. Ruins the whole play. Takes off that tackle, just blows that tackle up, screws up the pulling guard. They got the backside fullback leading up. He ends up taking him on, stuffs the whole thing. They don't get the first down. Throws him on the ground. So you see it here one more time. Shocks that guy, pushes him back past the line of scrimmage. Stiff, single arm pressing him as he's taking on 44, the fullback. Bop. And ruins the play. It's not sexy, guys. But for me, that's football porn, man. That is awesome to watch. This guy's an absolute stud. Again, appreciate the pad level. You see just what now, I'm going to rewind this because it's important. Watch the dip and explosion and then the hand press in place. Okay. Now, again, Penn State's nothing to cough at, right? This is a big time college football. Look what he does to that guy. Just absolutely manhandles him. He blows him back in the off the line of scrimmage so much that 44, again, the fullback ends up running into that block. Okay. And he ruins the play. Right? He's the one ruining these plays. Now, I put recognition on there along with pad level and technique. He steps to the tackle. Tackle steps out. His eyes immediately go to the guard. He blows up the guard. Boom. Again, consistently playing on their side of the line of scrimmage, locked out. Now, the double team gave up this play. He ends up trying to fall in and making the play at the end. But the recognition, the play speed, and the technique, when we're watching tape, you want to see, can that guy make a decision or read and react and then have really, really high level technique when he's doing it? And again, you might not appreciate just from it's not a sexy way to watch film, or it doesn't look like he's making a lot of plays, but I'm telling you, this is a problem when you're trying to design run game. He gets washed here. So they run a little spike. Fashanu does a good job of just washing, just part of the scheme, not a big deal. Now, here's the real problem in their game. They rush 3 a lot. He ends up getting doubled a lot. So he ends up getting doubled onto the tackle. You see his hands are inside his read. He maybe gets held, maybe he doesn't right there. Not a big deal. Then we see it again. Bottom line for this guy, a lot of dirty work. Technically, really, really high-level player. I think we get the double, and then he's just got to, he's got to put some time in, blah, blah, blah. But when you watch this stuff, man, it's really impressive. He's a really, really good player. I think the verdict for me is Latu's not going to be around. He's a guy that you would love to draft and develop. I think over the long term, you just see some smoothness there. There could be something there that's really good. But the production, when you start going, okay, well, Colorado and what was it? Charleston College or University or whatever, not, 6 out of the 13 sacks in those 2 games. How was he against other guys? You really have to dig in, because we saw some stuff against the Arizona guys that you don't like. You don't like the pad level out of the stand up. Byron Murphy the second looks like Cedric Darby lookalike to me. And I say that with a lot of respect, because I think Cedric Darby was a hell of a good pro, and he had a long, very, very successful career that probably most people don't understand. I like Jenkins the best. and I don't know where these guys are all drafted in different rounds. But if you're going to be like, who's going to add the most value to your team, it would be Jenkins for me, because I think you have enough guys at the defensive end position that can get sacks, and we have struggled in the run game from a stopping the ball at the line of scrimmage standpoint. And I just see Jenkins consistently against a good team, not against NFL guys, granted, but just, again, what things transfer. Stance, first step, hands inside, playing on their side of the line of scrimmage, locking out. Like, he does it almost flawlessly most of the game. So I love that part of him. He uses his pad level the way it should be used. He uses his pad level better than the 6-foot guy, and he's 6'3", 300 pounds. So I really, really like that. I really, really like all three of those guys, but I think, Jenkins for me, it's not just because his uncle and his dad are both some of my favorite teammates and guys to play against. I used to have some. Cullen used to just be one of these guys where he was so sneaky, and he had spins, and he could spin backwards and forwards, and he had great wiggle to him. He was so crafty that he was one of those guys. He was a camp guy, so initially, and so you're like, yeah, I should never, shouldn't have a hard time against a camp guy. And you're like, son of a bitch, this camp guy's really good. And then camp guy ended up being there for like 5 years because he was such a good player. So I like the family can play ball, man. Couple listener questions before we get chance to watch any running backs. And if so, who do you like? I don't think I've really watched running backs this year, and I probably should. Maybe I'll do that the week of the draft, just because, even with AJ coming back, I think I've said this before, for me, I actually did take a peek at a couple guys, and there's just like, there wasn't anybody like the kid from Texas last year or Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, maybe it just didn't click, or maybe I haven't just heard the buzz. Maybe I looked at the wrong guys, and I could look at some guys next week because of that. Because it's a position, I think, that is, for me, that change-up guy, that like LaDainian Tomlinson, Jahmyr, like the guy that can catch the ball in the backfield, the guy that can, the Reggie Bush, that's just a very, very unique skill set. To have a guy like that in your team that you can draw like a separate game plan around, or more importantly, the defense has to really consider every time he comes in the game, is different than just having an all-pro Josh Jacobs type back with AJ in whatever kind of status he's going to be. I think that's very important. Why isn't Sterling Sharp in the Hall of Fame? You got me, man. I think it's a lot of times it has to do with, situation, not necessarily even numbers, but length. And then, how much does Brett's greatness overshadow everybody else's success? That's some there. Armchair evaluators can watch college shape, or how do scouts and GMs project what they can become? Zach Tom had to add weight and maintain agility. As a coachability, what goes into projecting ceilings? We just talked about it, really, right? You always assume that guys can add a little strength when they're coming out of college because they're underdeveloped, because they're only 21, 22 years old. But you really, there's a couple of things that I believe that I know for a fact a lot of guys on ESPN now have said the exact opposite to me. I do believe for 99% of the people out there, when you enter an NFL building at 22 years old, you've kind of developed your personality. You're not completely developed human. Like your cerebral cortex or frontal lobe doesn't develop until you're 24 and a half, I believe. But I think if you're an asshole at 19, or, at 15 through 22 years old, and you walk into a building, I think you're still going to be an asshole. I think if you don't like to, if the game's always been super easy to you, and so you treat people poorly, and you don't study, and you don't have a great work ethic, I don't think that struggling in the National Football League is necessarily going to mean that you're going to create this work ethic. I think that you have to really understand what kind of person you're drafting from, just how bad they want to be great, how bad they want to make it, how desperate they are to be successful. And I think you can find a lot of that out by going back to their college, and trying to find people that you trust that can that will give you an honest answer. So I think that part of it's maybe the most important part for me, because I honestly, I just know I know that a lot of people that are making decisions think that they're, quote, unmolded clay, that it's our responsibility to shape him as people who work in the building. It's like, dude, the guy is who he is. You can try to give them the tools to be successful, and you can try to help them take that path. But if they don't have the intrinsic motivation within them for whatever reason, that's very, very tough to unearth. It would be you would do better to find guys who have the intrinsic motivation and the behaviors and the character traits that you want to start with, and then try to teach the football, then find the tangibles, the height, weight, the speed that you want without any of the intangibles, and then hope that you're going to change behaviors. I think that's really tough. And then you just start looking at movement. And let me just preface that, or let me go back and say, listen, if a guy, has a checkered past, I certainly did. If a guy has, if you don't like the way the guy walks into a room, like, there's tolerable things. I'm talking very strictly about, is the guy here to work? Is he here to just be in the National Football League? Like, because those are two different things. And in my opinion, if you got a guy who's super talented, but he just wants to be in the National Football League, I don't think you're going to convince him otherwise, or at least I don't think it's worth your organization's time to try to convince him otherwise, if that makes sense. Then you're going to look at movement, and movement trumps all, because let's say every position except for quarterback, even though footwork, obviously, for quarterback is very important. Movement trumps all, because that is going to be where they default when things are like, when it hits the fan, you're going to default to kind of, you don't rise to your expectations to fall to the level of your training, something like that. Greek philosopher, I'll remember his name in a second as soon as I get off the air, said that. But the point is, when things are going poorly, that reveals how you move, how you react, how you think, what your default mechanism is, right? What your training has taught you. So it's our responsibility to train them in the system that we believe is the best. It is our responsibility to teach them the technique that we believe is the best. If they are coming in with a natural predilection to beat one-on-one pass rush, to win one-on-ones, wide receivers against DBs, if they have that, then what you're trying to figure out is how much of it's natural, how much of it is God-given, how much of it is work, right? And you're trying to figure that out because you want to see how much value you can add. And then with that, you project, okay, this is where he might be able to get to over the course of 4 or 5 years until that second contract. And I think a lot of stuff goes into that, obviously. The coaching staff you have, the scheme you're going to run, the quarterback you have in a lot of situations, all of that matters. And so that's why this is that's why they employ so many people in the personnel department. That's why the coaching staff gets involved, right? And then the other thing, I guess, that I didn't talk about that I should is every single coach is going to have players that they really, really want to coach. And they're going to have players where they'll coach because they have to, not because they want to. And so if you can align your personnel department with your coaching staff, and your coaching staff can say, hey, listen, I like these 5 players. You rank them however you want, but I really want to work with at least one of them, versus the personnel department going, I have these 5 players and you rank them however you want because I want to draft one of them. You see the difference there is, like, the guy who has to actually work with them every day has a larger say in who they're picking up, versus the guy who wants to draft, and then if he doesn't develop, blame it on the coach, has a larger say, and that's a problem. So there's a lot of things go into it, but I can tell you this honestly: once you look at your kind of your cutoff line for the physical trait. So I was liking it to like riding the ride at Disneyland. You got to be this tall to ride the ride. Once you meet that physical requirement, the number one thing you got to look to is what kind of behaviors, what kind of character traits does this person have? Is it the kind of person that is going to raise the level of intensity, of intelligence, and whatever in our room? And if that's what we're looking for, and if the answer is yes, and like he starts moving, quite close to the top of the board. So hope that makes sense, guys. I hope that's helpful. Gosh, I hope for like one more week, and then we can just start talking about like real football again, and not. These guys are fun to watch. Don't get me wrong, but I got to stay off Twitter for another week for this. These mock drafts and these. This guy won once. It matters. Find me on Mike Wahle 68 on Twitter or X, Process to Perform on Instagram. Guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Chris Jenkins, miss you, man. Cullen, see ya.